Today I want to talk about home security for the families.
It's always better to be prepared and not need it.
Usually, security is attached to anxiety and fear, but we want to separate that. Where is that fire extinguisher right now, right?
Heart attack. Do they understand what CPR is?
And she pulled out the gun and fired a few rounds, and he ended up dying.
What information does a 911 operator need?
If you go looking for trouble, you're going to find it.
You'll find trouble.
Right.
Yeah. Being safe in this world is a life skill.
Yeah.
It's something that you want to definitely drill on.
My name is James Kerr. I'm the owner of Boss Security Screens, and I'm with Mike MJ Johnston, expert in all things law enforcement security related.
I love the introductions, but you say too much.
That's an understatement. Today I want to talk about home security for the family. So many of us have kids, many of us have spouses. We want to be sure that everyone has an idea of what they should and shouldn't do. I think sitting down with the family and talking about safety and security is a positive thing.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be, oh, we're being attacked by UFOs, what are we going to do? Let's make a plan, right? It can be something proactive. Usually, security is attached to anxiety and fear, but we want to separate that. And when it comes to security, there are things that we can do about being smart about it, for example, and we can think these things through.
So, unfortunately, in our world, this day and age, the concept of security and discussing safety is really becoming second nature to kids. And if you think about it, they're being introduced to these concepts early in their school, as little as kindergarten. These kids are learning safety procedures. Right. So you're right, it's not a terrible thing to teach them. Kids are receptive. They're very intuitive. And if you make the education process, and I say fun, but educational and purposeful, they'll respond very well. You know, but the training has begun already in school. And it would just be reinforced if you're taking care of the home. Unfortunately, again, today we've got to talk about mass shootings. What do you do? Well, these kids are all being trained on what to do, and they're being drilled. I mean, back in when I was in school, I don't know about you, but the only thing we were trained on were fire drills. Of course, maybe you were, I don't know, were you in the 60s and getting underneath?
Yeah, we were under the desks.
Under the desks, So, I mean, I wasn't in the 60s, but in the early 70s, we were trained to get underneath the desks.
Cold War.
Cold War stuff. So now I wasn't Cold War per se, but certainly those kind of drills were commonplace back then. So how do you teach your children? Well, you have to first identify what threats you want to train and what's appropriate. I mean, we don't have to train them for a full-on invasion. The likelihood of that isn't going to happen. But we do want to talk about the stranger. A child's tendency is to run to the front door and open the door as soon as they hear a doorbell. Welcome, come on in. We want to kind of break the habits that are of natural tendency. Kids are very trusting. And so we don't want to teach paranoia, but we want to teach them what stranger danger is. And we want to teach them what is appropriate and when. Starting young and starting early. And consistency is very important when you're talking about young children.
Reinforcing concepts. Good to have the conversation. It's already happening in the school.
It's already happening.
So it makes sense to make it work in the home and other places. Number two is make it age appropriate. Some conversation with a 5-year-old is going to be different than someone with a 15-year-old, right? Number three that we talked about before, well, you kind of alluded to it right now, is like, what kinds of threats are we really talking about? Well, there's fire, there's like natural disaster, there are strangers at the door, maybe there's a stranger or strangers in the house, right? So we start to kind of look at what these potential threats are, and then we start to kind of think through a plan for each.
Correct.
Right.
I mean, have you ever practiced with your child a power outage?
No.
Okay. No, it's not a threat, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's not like somebody's trying to get you.
Right.
It's not the boogeyman. It's not anything like that.
Yeah.
But does your child know what to do when the power goes out?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it just did the other day.
I mean,
right?
so
in Las Vegas.
Right. I mean, we don't get power outages very often.
No,
but if you had a full-on blackout power outage in the middle of the night, do your children know what works in the house, what doesn't work in the house? Do they know where the backup flashlights are? Do they know where the first aid kit is? When you start to think about safety in the home, start small. And start thinking about the little things. Right. What are they more apt to encounter on a daily basis? But like I said, a power outage. I mean, how about a slip and fall where they seriously cut themselves? Maybe they're home by themselves. Right. Do they know first aid? Do they know where the first aid kit is? Right. Do they know how to call 911? Right. What information does a 911 operator need? They need a name. They need an address. They need to know who's there, who's involved, what are the nature of the injuries. Teach them to talk to a 911 operator so that they understand.
I like how you said start small, right? And start relevant. In the world of security, it's easy to get kind of crazy and talking about too many things too quickly. Maybe it's something like Security Saturdays. I don't know, every Saturday you have like a 10, 15 minute conversation about something, anything. There's one, that I found is really critical. Many times youngsters will be in a situation where they don't quite feel comfortable, and we need to let them know that they can come to us, safe harbor environment, and speak up about something that might not seem right.
Correct. Yeah. And you hit it right there with some of the programs that you said. They're already teaching these programs in school. Why not reinforce them in the home? Yeah. But that would require the parents to also understand and know what the kids are being taught in the school. Right. But when you go from small to large, less serious to more serious, you can build in the layers of understanding for the child. Yeah. And as long as you have a safety mindset. And you start training them very early. I mean, I remember the first time I got told that the stove was hot. It's a learning process. You do the same thing with safety. And you can teach your children not to run to the door and open it. You can teach them, you can bring them to the door with you as you say, who is it? You know,
role play it.
Identify, role play it. Let them see the proper procedure.
And I like the quick little takeaways like, hey, just because someone's at the door doesn't mean you need to open it, right?
Correct.
Or just because someone asks for your phone number or, if it's not law enforcement, for example, you don't have to give away information without first thinking it through whether that person really needs it, right? So these little kind of lessons are really easy to start with, especially if they're age appropriate.
And teach them about personal space. Don't let strangers walk up to you. Right. Keep your distance. I mean, it's, again, reinforcing the behavior you want to see. Right. And kids are resilient. They learn, and they will emulate what you teach them. Yeah.
And just like schools, there's constant drilling, there's constant practice, there's constant reinforcement.
Correct.
Right. So it's one thing to give some kind of tip or whatever, but if we just give it once, chances are it's not going to stick. We need to be sure that's constantly reinforced and practiced. Like, where is that fire extinguisher right now, right?
So some of the things that come to mind for me are simple things like power outages. What if you have a water break in your home, so flooding within the home. Now, we don't live in a flood zone, but what if they were home in somewhere near a wash and, teach them the safeties of washes and, the flooding. Teach them about strangers and the door opening, and what would you do if an adult in the house fell ill, heart attack? Do they know?
Unconscious.
Do they understand what CPR is? Do they understand what they would need to do in that emergency? So just think of the type of emergencies that are going to be present in the home. Think of the things that might be, and in law enforcement, we talked about things being high severity, low frequency, meaning the rare things that happen. It's very serious, but it rarely happens. You need to practice for those as much as the things that happen frequently, but are not serious.
Yeah, before I ask you this next question, I just want to reinforce the one thing about keeping stuff locked. You know, keep the back slider locked, keep the window locked, keep the front door locked. Many times youngsters and other family members run in and out. Leave it unlocked, and
if
all
they
that
even latch the
nice
door.
security we invested in is now worthless because we left it unlocked.
Correct.
Right? Let's say I'm all on board with having these discussions with my family, and I want to start where the most likely thing is going to happen. Is it the fire? Is it the health? Is it the intruder? Where is the place to start?
So I think it's very important to teach these kids about the fire, about potential common things. All right, household fire is common. It happens.
And severe.
Yeah. So it's something that you want to definitely drill on. We know that strangers come to our home. I mean, people knock on our door all the time. That should be a priority. We should teach them, just as we spoke in an earlier segment, we talked about having a family safety plan, a safe room.
Right.
Teach them where the safe room is. And teach them to grab the phone and run with the phone to the safe room. Make sure they understand how to do the locks. A safe room can be as simple as a reinforced door in a closet. But again, the kids are only going to know to do it if you practice it, talk about it, rehearse it.
Plan it, practice.
And let them tell you the steps. After you've trained them, after you've taught them, have them play it out.
Lead the charge.
Let them talk about it so they know and it's reinforced in their mind.
In summary, number one, security is important to everyone. It's good to have this conversation. It's healthy to have the conversation, and we can do it in an age-appropriate way. It's not overwhelming the child. And as you mentioned, they're already getting that in school.
They're already getting it in school, so why not reinforce it, bring that training and education back to the home.
We don't have to cover all the bases in one sitting. We can look at, all right, fires, for example, let's talk this through. Where are the extinguishers? Where are we going to go? After we get out of the house, whom do we call? And where do we go? Is it that neighbor over there, or is it this neighbor there?
Think about current events. If you just remember what's happening on a daily basis, it can remind you of things that you can prepare for.
Right.
You know, you hear about a child drowning in a wash. Okay, that reminds me. It's the monsoon season here.
You can make it relevant to what's going on.
I should really make it relevant. Not that you're going to teach that event to them, but as adults, we get reminded on a regular basis the bad things that are out there in this world. It's up to the parent to bring it home and make sure the child's prepared. This
is a conversation for one of the maybe older members in the family. It could be a teen, could be a spouse or whatever. But this scenario where the Uber driver and the other driver were having the road rage, and the Uber driver hopped out of the car and in a threatening way approached the woman in the other car, and she pulled out the gun and fired a few rounds, and he ended up dying. If you go looking for trouble, you're going to find it.
You'll find trouble,
right? And so road rage is really about looking for trouble.
If somebody's in a road rage situation, don't engage it.
Right.
Go somewhere safe. Go somewhere where it's populated. Drive to a police station. I doubt the road rage person's going to be following you to the police station. Or go somewhere very public. But pulling over on the side of the road is nothing but trouble. And if you need to escape, I always try to have myself in a lane where I can make change. Right. If you're stuck on a 3-lane road, and if you're stuck in the middle, you're not going anywhere. But on the outside and the inside, I can make a U-turn or I can make a right-hand turn. So think about your positioning. It's all about. Gordon Graham once said. I think I told you about Gordon Graham. He's the king of liability prevention.
My favorite topic. Predictable is preventable.
So think about that in terms of your safety. If you think it could happen, then it could happen. And you need to prepare to prevent it.
And preparation is the planning and the practice and the training that comes with it.
Absolutely. It's always better to be prepared and not need it than need it and not be prepared.
And as a parent, to be able to equip our children to be able to live more independently over time, that's really the thing.
Being safe in this world is a life skill.
Yeah.
And we are responsible to teach our kids life
Right.
skills.
Yeah.
So
Great.
why not talk about safety?
We want these conversations we're having to be more than just the two of us sitting here. You've got your own situations. You've got your own insights. Let's share our best practices here in the comments below. And together we can be safer. Yes, MJ, thanks as always. I learned so much just being with you, right? No, really, I really enjoy this. And
I appreciate that.
I want to get more into some of the real life experiences he's had. So
I know people out there have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And it's always good to ask those questions,
Yeah.
be inquisitive, give us some ideas, tell us what you want to hear, and we'll cover it as a topic.
yeah, absolutely. Ask those questions. We want to hear from you. There are things you want to know, and our mission is to get those answers for you. Quick thanks to everyone for watching. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you here again next time.